Hello and welcome back to the Which Bookie YouTube channel. I am joined once again by Will Smith. We're going to be looking forward to Newmarket's Guineas weekend. There is racing today. We're recording this on Friday. We're not going to be covering the action from that. It's a little bit too late to do it. But Saturday and Sunday, there's quite a few races we wanted to cover. So we'll try and be as concise as we can. And then towards the end of it, if we're lucky, we might be able to get Will's fancies from anywhere else. But as always, our selections are available for free on the Which Bookie website. There'll be a link in the description to go and find those. So when we get our final thoughts for Saturday and Sunday, obviously market moves, ground changes, etc., you'll be able to find out what our final selections are. But Will, it's the start of the flat season as far as I'm concerned when it comes up to Guineas weekend. We've still got Punchestown going on, so it's a perfect blend of interest. There's almost too much going on at the moment, but there's some good racing at Newmarket over both days. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, almost too much going on, as you said. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of putting it, really. You spread yourself quite thinly and, as ever, you find angles and you want to pick through races and you run out of minutes in the day, it seems. So yeah, hopefully we'll keep it a bit more specific with regards to the thoughts or potential selections for the 2 days of the Guineas meeting that we're going to preview. And of course, Friday's racing today, we'll get 1 or 2 clues as to how the track will ride as well, which is always important at Newmarket. It can be a track where various sections of the track can be favoured at various different stages. I mean, we saw that in the Craven meeting, didn't we, already this season? So plenty of interest, still plenty of water to flow under the bridge before finalising absolute selections for the weekend. But this will be a good way to help that.
Lovely. Well, we'll crack on with the Saturday stuff. It's interesting when you say with the draw bits as well, because I sit on a weird fence with it. There obviously are some very big biases, especially when you get wind and things like that as well. I have a few friends that will message me and say, there's a big bias here today. We want to be laying the low drawn runners, etc. But there also are times, like especially I feel like it's happened lots at the Newmarket meeting, where day one's low draws, day two's high draws, then it goes back to one or the other on the other days. And we'll not forget Royal Ascot this year, that first race last year where they were on the far side. Jockeys looked like they'd made a bit of a mess of it. Everyone was saying it's a joke to be drawn that side. And then all the winners came from the other side straight after. So yeah, we'll have to see, won't we? I do obviously you've got to pay attention to the draw. It is part of that, but yeah, it's so early on it. We'll have to just see what happens. Right. A race that may make a difference to the draw. The first one I reckon we should look at on the Saturday is the 145. This is a race that's being covered on ITV Races. It's the Betfred Handicap, which is over 6 furlongs. It's a heritage handicap. Where was your thought process on this one of who might win the race? We've got 13 runners. There could have been up to 25 in it, so it's not as big a field as it could have been.
No, it's not. The sort of opinion or the theme for this is quite heavily draw bias affected, actually, because it's the 6 furlong handicap race at the Craven meeting, which I think is one of the key pieces of form in here. And that was quite notable because anything that raced sort of towards the centre of the track in the group on that particular occasion seemed to be favoured. I mean, More Thunder had a clear run down the outside. Aram Ram and Woodhay Wonder were always over towards that far side of the group as well. So it was a race where those that were hard up against the stands rail at Newmarket that day, I thought were probably slightly disadvantaged. And Indian Run was stall 11, so right up against the stands rail. Managed to race a little bit off it, but I thought he ran a lot better on his first start for a a yard going very well at this stage of the season, Julie Camacho's stable. I thought he ran a lot better than his finishing position suggested. He is a winner over 6 furlongs if you go back to his 2-year-old days, and he likes fast ground as well. So it's pretty windy at Newmarket over the course of the next 3 days. So I thought at sort of 33 to 1, and you can get 25 to 1 plus generally, I thought he was definitely of some interest. Now, obviously, it'll be worth seeing how the draw plays out because he's in stall 1. So right over on the far side on this occasion. But there's a few pace setters drawn lowish, most notably Silky Wilkie in stall 4. So if there was a bit of a group on that far side led by Silky Wilkie, then I could see Indian Run outrunning his price at a whopping 25 to 1 plus.
Oh, nice. Yeah, top price 33 to 1 at the time of record. This is about midday on the Friday. It doesn't take too much to make a case for ones at big prices, is it? But like you say, first run for a new yard, the drop back in trip will probably suit, quicker ground. I mean, lots to like, isn't there? I didn't have a massively strong opinion in this one. Well, I did just think that More Thunder last time looked like a horse that had more to come for the fact that they've dropped him back in trip. I think his future will be over 7 furlongs or sort of near future. But for the purpose of now, they're just obviously going to continue with the 6 furlong bit. They all, as much as they knew that was the trip to run him out from what he was doing at home, I don't think they expected him to do what he did. So I feel like this time there might be a bit more, I don't want to say force, that's probably the wrong way, but I think there might be a bit more expected of him, which means we might see a better performance from him. So, I thought he did have a favourites chance, but he's easily found at the top of the market, isn't he? He's a little bit weak at the moment as well, so we'll see what happens to his price over the next 24 hours. The second race at Newmarket, the 220, the Suffolk Stakes, another heritage handicap wheel, over 1 mile, 1 furlong. Interesting horse in here that was favourite. It's sort of vying for favouritism still. Hand of God, that's won his last 3 races, and then they've gelded him. So did you? I don't have a massively strong opinion in this race, to be honest with you. I was intrigued by that with him in the fact that he'd had those few runs and they've gelded him almost for, you'd say, almost no reason. But booking of Ryan Moore back again looks quite positive. Blue Lemon's the horse he beat at Sandown a couple of starts back. That won the Grade 2 juvenile at Fairyhouse a couple of months ago. So, he definitely looks like he's quite a nice horse, but wouldn't be a race that I'd want to be getting stuck into. But could you find a way in?
Possibly, and again, quite draw dependent because it's one of those drawn very high. Now I know it's 1 mile, 1 furlong, so you might say shouldn't really matter, but as ever with Newmarket, with the straight course there, it can play some kind of effect anyway. But it's not massively confident by any stretch. There's quite a few seasonal reappearance horses in here, the likes of Hand of God, who could be progressive, Approval, Fox Legacy, Born Ruler. They're all reappearing with the scope to go forward again in their 4-year-old and 5-year-old season. So it might just be taken by one of those potential improvers. But a horse who always runs well here at Newmarket, ran well in the race last year and caught the eye a little bit on his seasonal reappearance at Ripon a couple of weeks ago, was Dutch Decoy. He was second in a mile handicap behind Hafid Orlen at the Craven meeting last year. And then he was second in this race last season to Liberty Lane, future Cambridgeshire winner. So he then went on to run with credit in a number of different handicaps throughout the course of the season. But it's probably this type of early season contest that suits him the best. He'll be probably a bit more forward than some, given the yard he comes from. And I thought he was interesting from stall 12, Dutch Decoy. I think you can get around about 8-1, 9-1 with an extra place or two. I thought that was definitely worthy of some interest.
Well, I like that. Yeah, only the 13 runners. I say only because there are lots of firms offering 4 places. There's even one firm offering 5 places. 9-1 does look a bit of a fair price for the case you've made there, Will. The race after this, the 255, Speedballs. It's 5 furlongs, Palace House Stakes, Group 3. I thought this looked probably quite open. I mean, the betting would suggest the same too. It's 4-1 the field, and there's 5 or 6, maybe even 7 horses that are single figure prices in here. The one that I was a bit confused by the price on, but I guess this is going to be a theme at the start of the season where we're guessing how ready horses are, what their main targets are, etc., etc. I couldn't believe Democracy Dilemma was 16-1, and he's a general 16-1 shot. He's not shown any real signs of shortening up either. But again, from a field size perspective, there's 11 runners in here. There are firms offering 4 places, but he ran a couple of starts ago at Newbury. Well, I thought he'd have a bit of a chance, but the ground went against him, really. It was on heavy ground. He was only beaten inside a couple of lengths from No Half Measures, who at that point he was given £4 to. And everything, well, there was everything in that race to suggest why he couldn't have run as close as he did, with purely for the fact of the ground. Then they ran him again after on soft ground, which the trainer then said the reason for his poor performance is because of the bad going. But I think this horse is your classic 5 furlong horses. You get a lot of these horses that might want to mix it over a little bit further and they can get away with the slower ground. That's what I maybe think No Half Measures is. She's a very fast horse, but she's a very fast 5 furlong horse when the ground's a bit easier. Whereas this lad, on fast ground over 5 furlongs, I think he's like your typical proper sprinter. Now, he won first time up last season, but it's caveated to the fact that he'd had a couple of runs in Dubai beforehand, but he still ran all right first time up there. But it was under Tom Marquand, who's been booked again for this ride. So where I talk about you sort of guessing with targets and things like that as well, it may be they're stepping forward for something else. But with a horse like this that does need quicker ground, needs a good 5 furlong trip to go at, and the fact that this is a Group 3, but there may be bigger targets down the line for other horses, this might be a potential gettable Group 3 for him. He won a listed race last year. That was his first season for Robert Cowell. I just thought it was fairly easy to make a case for him, even if he was half the price that he is. So the 16-1 about him, especially with 4 places up for grabs, feels like it's a good bet, to be fair, because they might have other targets for him later down the line. I don't know if he definitely will need them. I don't think he would. I'd be keen to see what trainer comments were, but to my mind, with a horse like this, you've got to get him ready for when they've got the opportunities to run, as opposed to having a longer plan, because you don't know what the weather's going to do. So I thought he was grossly overpriced. But I don't know about you, Will. The market's got loads of horses with a chance. Do you think there are loads with a chance?
I think there are, yeah. And so many are making their seasonal debut, aren't they? So it's really a bit of a guessing game as to which one is going to be well forward or more forward than the others. So, tricky race to pick through for me personally. You could certainly see the case for plenty of those at the top of the market. But I do agree with you that Democracy Dilemma on his day, he's a real solid listed Group 3 performer, and 5 furlongs fast ground, I think, are his optimum, really. He's that real speedball. And amazingly, he's never run at Newmarket. You'd have thought that sort of track might well suit him, actually, given his style of running. So, first go at the track. Obviously, as you said, Tom Marquand booked again. He won on him on his first start of the season last season, first turf start, should I say, last season, because he was, as you mentioned, over in Dubai. But I thought he was one of those on the shortlist, definitely. And Robert Cowell throws a bit of a spanner in the works by running 3, doesn't he? Of course, with Clarendon House and the newly acquired 7 Questions, who of course won the race last year. So the market, I think, will probably tell us a bit with regards to the relative fitness of most of these. But it's a race that I'll be watching closely, because I think these types of sprints, you can pick 1 or 2 angles then going on into the Group 2, Group 3 sprints as we go through the year. So intriguing renewal, but nothing strong for me.
Yep, fair. And that's the thing, is it's definitely a price-related thing with Democracy Dilemma. If he was half the price, I'd still probably want to have an interest on him. But if they're going to give me twice the price, I will happily take that risk. So, I mean, don't want to give too many spoiler alerts away, but he would be one that's firmly in the column for Saturday, unless his price gets completely smashed up. If he's 6 to 4 pack, then we might have to leave him. But hopefully a few viewers that are watching this might want to take the chance to get on early. We'll get on to the big one now, Will, for Saturday, the 2,000 guineas. Field of Goals head in the market, 2 to 1 top price. I want to say he's a little bit weak, because he is, but I mean, it's a 2,000 guineas, and there's a lot of depth in this race as far as I'm concerned. Ruling Court second in at 4 to 1. Expanded for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore is as big as 7 to 1, but as short as 4 to 1. So it'll be interesting to see where he sits in the next 24 hours. Shadow of Light 7 to 1. Scorthy Champs 8 to 1, and then it's 14 to 1 or bigger the rest. 11 runners in here, Will. There's a good bunch, I would say, in here. Doesn't feel to me like, I say, a typical Guineas, but it doesn't feel like a year of the Guineas where we had a City of Troy last year, where I'm looking at them thinking this is a absolute aeroplane superstar future thing. I feel like it looks like there's some good horses. I'd imagine something's going to come out of this though and look like an exceptional horse. Do you think you can preempt who that exceptional horse might be?
I think if there was to be an exceptional one, it'll be firmly one of the top 2 in the market. And I don't discount Expanded lightly, the Ballydoyle representative, the only one in the race, which is a surprise in itself, but 1 or 2 others have perhaps fallen by the wayside, haven't they? So, he's quite closely matched with Shadow of Light on the Dewhurst Stakes running. Seagulls 11 was back in 4th that day as well, so that's that form translated into this here. Aidan O'Brien's runners in the Guineas, that seemingly over the course of time, they've just become less and less ready for this assignment, purely sort of speaking anecdotally, but you don't often find they're absolutely hard-tuned fit to go and win the Guineas. I don't think the Triple Crown's really on their agenda anymore these days. So, Field of Gold and Ruling Court would be the 2 that I very much think could be the potential superstars, those 3-year-olds that go up and mix it into older company later on in the year. And without having seen the Charlie Appleby trained Ruling Court, I think the impression Field of Gold left when winning the Craven last time out, beating Wimbledon Hawkeye, was pretty impressive for me. It was a good time as well. He travelled nicely through the race. He had to wait for a gap, but then when the gap appeared, he was straightforward enough to go through it. So he learned plenty on that occasion. Big, raw, scopy horse as well. So he handled Newmarket well, which is a tick. And you'd imagine there's got to be more to come as well. John and Thady Gosden would by no means be of the mind to have a horse like this, 100% ready to run for its life at this stage of the season. So everything he did that day was pretty impressive, I thought. And he might not have to improve a huge amount to to go and win this, to be fair. I don't think there are too many horses in here that you'd say, yeah, this is a real superstar bunch of 3-year-old milers. Time might tell different, but I think as things stand, I'd probably be pretty sweet on Field of Gold.
Nice. I feel like I've listened to quite a few previews and read quite a few people. I feel like you're the first one that's actually given him a bit of credit for what he did, because he was visibly very impressive, wouldn't he? And I know John Gosden hasn't won this classic before, but I wonder whether a little bit too much of being put into that. And I know like Craven winners as well. There's been plenty of horses that have run in there and tried, and we haven't had one for, I don't know, it must be 20 plus years. Maybe that was one of Craven and come here. I think that's just off the top of my head, could be wrong. But I think there's been a couple of winners this century that have come from that race. But yeah, I thought he deserved to be favourite, to be honest with you. And it might be that there's some horses that have got bigger targets down the line. We've seen that in the past. There's going to be a few nice horses that come out of here. The one that I was semi-tempted with, but I feel like I need a bigger price, which is trying to probably be greedy. But I thought Scorthy Champ for Joseph O'Brien. The form lines between Henry Matisse, I think, are being treated a little bit like, well, Henry Matisse has gone and won at the Breeders' Cup. Scorby Champ didn't. So as much as you can use those bits to boost the form, people might be saying, well, Henry Matisse wasn't wound up for the national stakes when Scorby Champ got the better of him. But I thought he showed quite a bit of tenacity, and he showed quite a bit of a step forward from his previous run. Tactically, he was caught behind in that race when it was a 4-runner race the time before. But then when he did beat Henry Matisse, they got first run on him. And I wonder whether the same sort of thing might happen in it. It'd be interesting to see what side of the sort of draw pays dividends here. But I think about 40% of the winners this century and in the last decade have come from the 3 lowest stalls, which is the side of the track that Scorby Champ is going to find himself on. The only big concern I have with him, which we don't know of a lot of these horses at the start of the year, is he was a very small 2-year-old, and now going as a 3-year-old, I want to see how much size he's sort of gone into. He's got a couple of siblings that I think they did win at 3-year-old, but they seemed to be advanced 2-year-olds is probably the best way of putting it. So this is where, Will, I want kilograms, I want inches. I want to know how big he was last year, how big he is going into this race, because you can watch him on the TV as well, can't you? And it's good to see the paddock experts talking about it, but to get a scale of what a horse looked like the year before and the year after, unless you've seen him in the flesh, it's quite hard to do it. But I thought, I mean, if he looked a bit of a bigger horse, I feel like I would have given him a bit more of a chance. But I feel like in a renewal that might not be vintage, obviously time will tell, I thought there was a bit of a case to be made for him. There are 4 places up for grabs. That's where I'm saying I'd like a bit of a bigger price, I think, Will, because there's a big part of me that thinks I don't think he's actually going to win the race. And then if you're playing an each way bet and they were sort of an 8-1 poke, then you're betting pretty much 2s on, aren't you, for him to get a place. And I think there's far better 2s on pokes through the season. Not that I'll be putting him up than Scorthy Champ maybe, but looks an interesting race. I'm a big fan of Wimbledon Hawkeye as well. I can't believe his run last time was true. But obviously, if it is, that means that Field of Gold is an absolute aeroplane. But we will find out on Saturday, won't we, Will?
We certainly will. Yeah, certainly will. The other one I'd give just a quick mention to would be Jesse Harrington's Green Impact. Stable have been very, very cold, which is, why I'm tempering the mention of him a little bit. But, I think his form lines with Delacroix, the Ballydoyle horse, they're respectful, definitely, at this particular level. And he might just be the only potential pace angle that I can see in here. Now, obviously, they're lightly raced horses with scope to change their run style, for the big event. So that might well be the case. But, if he went forward, and Newmarket can often be that, that type of track, if you get into the rhythm and a bit of a tailwind, then he might just outrun his price. But like I said, reasons to not go full swing with that, because the stable have been cold, and it might well be that others try something similar.
Yeah, true. He was a horse I remember from last year, especially the Delacroix runs. But even on his debut, I think when he got beat, looks like a horse that wants to win races. Like, he's very tenacious, and as much as he might not have as much raw ability as other horses, he does look the type, if he had his head in front of something came to him, that he's going to try and pull out a little bit more. So, I mean, it's a deep Guineas, isn't it? For all that it might not look on paper to be a vintage one, but we could say that every year before we know what's actually going to happen, don't we? It's the same as last year. We could see a winner be an absolute surefire Guineas winner. We say this is the next best thing, and then they might not live up to expectations, because it is the start of the flat season, right? So, Will, there's 4 more races on the card at Newmarket. I don't have a massive opinion on any of them as it stands at the moment. Was there any of those 4 you'd like to quickly give the viewers something on?
Yeah, just the next 2, the 405 and the 440, I thought definitely had some interest in it for me. The 405 1.5 Class 2 handicap, there's the 8 runners currently declared. Fingers crossed we still get those full 8. And there are some unexposed ones at the top, the likes of El Cordobez French Master. Lavender Hill Mob is probably unexposed coming back on the flat now. But the way Knightswood won at Ripon a week or so ago for Charlie Johnston and Joe Fanning was quite sneakily impressive for me, the way he went and done it on that occasion. Only 2 starts this season, and it was notable last season and every other season that he's taken a run or two to really click into gear. And I think a forceful ride or a positive ride over a mile and a half are his best set of conditions, really. So he might just be that sort of Charlie Johnston type horse to catch 1 or 2 cold in here, because he'll be, he's fit, he's in winning form, and you'd imagine he'll be ridden prominently. So I think you can get 7-1, something like that for him, which is a fair each way price, I thought, with the 8 runners. And in the 440 as well, again, very tentative, as for the reasons we've outlined. 6 furlong handicap, could be draw dependent, etc., etc. But Invictus Gold, excuse me, ran a really eye-catching race, I thought, on his seasonal debut here behind Double Rush. He sort of it was on a day when being up against the stands rail was helpful, and he raced a bit further away from it and had to come wide and make his challenge behind Double Rush that day. I think he's the type of horse that will step forward quite nicely from that. And if 1 or 2 of these sprinters are just a bit rusty, then he can put that experience and race fitness to decent use here in Invictus Gold. He's in stall 1 as well, so right out on a limb. Seems that every horse I've had a sneaky fancy for on the Saturday is either stuck out on one of the limbs. So that's why we'll have to pay attention to the draw and how it's panning out over the 3 days. But certainly horses of interest for me.
I like it. Yeah, that Invictus Gold, I think he won 2nd time up last, didn't he? And then he won 3rd time up as well. The one before Knightswood, he's got an entry on Sunday too, isn't he? But Callum Shepherd's booked to ride Sunday. So I'd say that the Saturday race, the 405, would be the first preference. And where you said it's the dead 8 at the moment, he's probably the only one that I would look at that think would be the potential one that could come out. So, if he definitely goes there, he's probably an obvious shorter just for the fact that he's doubly entered, isn't he? But you've made a strong case for that one too. Right,
he could be the type of horse that you run in consecutive days. It wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility.
Oh, back to back. Imagine that for a little each way double, just to get them both in related. I don't know if you get them on the bet slips. Was there anything else for Saturday from other tracks or anything you wanted to bring up before we move on to Sunday?
Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount really. No, Punchestown, there wasn't too much I could find really. I was hopeful of trying to give you something for Punchestown. There is one horse running at Doncaster later in the evening in the 6:20. There, a maiden stakes over 7 furlongs. He'll probably be a short price, to be fair. But Nakib, I thought, ran a massively eye-catching race on his seasonal debut at Newmarket's Craven meeting. That was over 7 furlongs. He's got 7 furlongs of Doncaster, straight 7. I'd be surprised if he doesn't win that. I'd probably also be surprised if he wasn't odds on. But if he's not, then if you like that type of thing, that type of bet, he looks a winner in waiting.
Like that. Just back winners, they say, don't they, Will? And that sounds like we've got one with Nakib there. The only other race for viewers on Saturday that I took a good look at and I actually quite liked a horse in was the Conqueror Filly Stakes, the 2 o'clock at Goodwood. Crimson Advocate tried 1 mile for the first time last time. Now, Soprano was a big drifter that day. Probably wasn't up to the best effort from that horse, but still got the job done. Only beat this one ahead, and it was proper on the head bob, wasn't it? Or I say it's head. I think it must have been a short head or a nose. There was a head bob between the two of them anyway. Proved that the mile was a fine trip for her, and I think she's entitled to take a big step forward for it. She'd had nearly 300 days off before that run. It was on the all weather, which I typically do think with some trainers is a sign that it's a stepping stone to something else. It was a listed race last time out, albeit, but first time under Rabba Havlin publicly. I mean, he would have ridden her plenty at home. I thought that had a proper chance. 7-2 is the top price at the time recorded. So, I say a relatively short priced horse. I think that's a fair price. I can see this one going off 2-1 or shorter. But we'll have to find out, won't we? I feel like it's nicer on the flat wheel. I have a bit of a moan, I guess is probably the best way to put it, with the mares for jumps, because sometimes I don't know if I can trust their consistency, but that's just because my spreadsheet tells me that I get more mares wrong than I get right. I feel a bit more comfortable on the flat with the fillies, that they maybe it's not even so much they're holding their form or as much as the mares stuff, but I just feel like they're a little bit more consistent when you read the form of some of them, and especially when they're in good form, they do seem to retain that for a little period of time as well. But then you get all sorts of people saying because the sun's shining and then running better, and then if the weather goes bad, it all changes. So we'll have to see. But yeah, early start of the season, and I'm tipping up a filly. So there we go. Right. Speaking of the fillies, Will, 1,000 Guineas Day on Sunday. So that's a nice little line. We've got 4 races that I've looked at in Newmarket already with a bit of an opinion, and they're the first 4. So happy to start with the 145, the Pretty Polly Stakes listed race. I thought, I mean, loads of people would have thought the same as well, but Falakea was filthily impressive on her debut. One of those performances where there's nothing really substantial behind to be able to work out how good the form is. I know there's bits and pieces where you can flick on horses that have run since, but when you get a horse that wins in the fashion that she did, where it's very much in isolation, I think that's enough just to say she looks like a very, very, very good horse. The key thing I think with her was Jim Crowley came through the middle of a couple of horses and then started to ask her a little bit. But this is where, again, the difference between flat and jumps horses. He started to ask her a little bit, which after 2.5 miles, if they were jumps jockeys, might have looked like he was asking for a proper effort. She didn't look like she started to stretch out. But then as soon as he properly loosens the reins and lets her go, she flew off. So I thought she looked like she was a well above average filly in that. This looks like a nice early season stepping stone for like bigger things to come, given it is, I say only a listed race, but it is a listed race. I think she's a very, very, very smart horse. The one that concerns me a tiny bit in here is Anna Swan, who's having first run for William Haggis, stable switch from Sir Michael Stout. I think that's obviously going to be a big theme this season, but loads of them are going in first time up after leaving Stout. And a lot of these horses as well are changing trips and doing different bits and pieces. But she was smashed by Desert Flower at Newmarket. I think it was the Fillies Mile in October. But the runs before that were all right, to be fair. And she was a massive price for that race back in October. She's the only one in here that I think would scare me for that Falakea, but she is giving us a bit of a price. So I thought, again, like favourite to front of the market, 5-2, but I thought this Falakea did look like something special, and Anna Swan would be the only one I'd see as a threat. Did you get a chance to look at this one or have a strong view in it?
No strong view in that, no, but the 220 I've got an inkling rather than a strong view, maybe in the Dahlia Stakes.
Yeah, let's get straight into that, because this is proper horse racing. Will, you've got 5 horses in there. I mean, I'd definitely say 4 of them have got a genuine conceivable chance that's in there. A few of them have run against each other as well, haven't they? I looked at this one and I felt like, not that it's obvious, but I feel like in my mind, as much as loads have got chances, there's only one winner. Who do you think wins it, Will, so I can see if I agree?
I think El Malka wins it. Is that a nod of approval? Yeah, okay.
100% nod of approval, yeah. Go on, yeah. I'll let you sell the case.
No, I thought she should be favourite and clear favourite, to be fair. She was obviously 1,000 Guineas winner last year, handles the track very, very well. She then was, I mean, her next 3 starts have all been 3 grade 1s as well, group 1s, should I say. She at Ascot in the Coronation Stakes, she just wasn't quite quick enough for those real top-notch fillies milers on the round course there, Porta Fortuna and Opera Singer, Ramatuelle, but that's no disgrace. I mean, they're quality milers, quick milers as well. She then went to the Nassau and probably travelled better than most in that particular event as well, and maybe just didn't quite properly see it out on a slightly idiosyncratic track. So no disgrace at all to be beaten 3 and a bit lengths or whatever in those 2 group 1s. And then she went obviously to the Sun Chariot at the back end of the season as well. And I just think the soft ground, the autumn softening of the ground just went against her a little bit, because I think she's a better horse on a sounder surface, definitely. So, the one slight doubt is she going to be as good as a 4-year-old as what she was as a 3-year-old? But you'd imagine, given the fact we only saw her once, once previous to her 3-year-old season, or once at the back end of her 2-year-old season, if you will, that might well make you think that she could even improve again this season. And looking at her pedigree, there would be every hope that would be very much the case as well, because she's a half sister to Ben Battle, who went on to win Group 1s at the ages of 4 and 5. So, I just thought she should be clear favourite, Al Malka. So, she's the pick.
Easy. I agree as well, mate. And the big thing with this one is last year she ran at Newbury. She was squidged for room in that Fred Darling Stakes as well. I fancied her that day. I mean, the Southern one that she had prior, you said just the one run as a 2-year-old. It was hard to know exactly how good she was, but she was visibly very good in there, looking like a horse that needed another year or at least another few months to bring herself through to the following season. And I kicked myself a bit as well, because it gets like thick and fast at the start of the flat season, doesn't it? And you can also almost be a bit too dismissive of some of the really early season stuff, thinking, oh, a horse has run well because other horses weren't ready, etc. When she went and won the 1,000 Guineas as well, I remember just watching it on the exchanges in running, and you could see her tanking, and she was still a massive price. And I was thinking, I must be watching some sort of delay, and then she's going to fall in a hole. And just kept watching her get better and better and better. And she's definitely the type of horse where, like you say, the bits of form after, where she's run behind Tamfana, Opera Singer, Opera Singer, and then Port Fortuna. They're good bits of form, but she looks like the type of horse where they did last season, didn't they? They ran a 1 mile, then 1 mile 2. She looks like the type of horse where 9 furlongs is even more ideal for her. Because that first run last year was over 7 furlongs. And if it had been 7.5 furlongs, I think she would have squeezed through and got up. So, yeah, I agree. I think she should be clear favourite, should be shorter than she is. But as I said right at the start of it, Will, there is a bit of a case to be made for a few of them. There are only 4 other runners for her to get squished in between those. So I'm hoping that Amelka, because she all but won first time up last season, I'm hoping she can get in there and get it done now. So in agreement, Will, that's good to know. Right, the race after Betfred Handicap, the 255, this is over 1 mile 6. So we touched on Knightswood. Well, you touched on Knightswood, and I said that the horse is also entered in here. Market's has been reformed since declarations, but it's a bit skewed. Well, maybe it isn't skew with. It looked a bit too open for my liking, is probably the best way of saying it. When I looked at when they reformed the market, there was just basically every horse was 5-1 plus, which felt strange considering there was just the 10 runners in here, but we are where we are with that. Liam Swagger's head in the market now, 3-1. I think there's been a little bit of support for him. Chiava, who won, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? 9-2 shot in here. Cavern Club's in 20-1. Align the Stars is 8-1. Artistic Star 10-1. I'm doing these in different orders just because it's the way it's listed. Sorry. Blinded by the Lights 8-1. Knightswood 11-2, but may or may not run. One for the Gutters 12-1. Story Horse is 12-1. Wild Waves is 8-1. Now, Will, when they did the market, this is where I got a bit confused. I had much time to look through every single runner in the race, but I can't believe that Align the Stars is 8-1. It was 10-1 when they reformed the market. And maybe I'm just being an idiot, but the run, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, in the Queen's Cup at Musselburgh, the race that Chiava did win, this horse was sent off favourite and just fell out the stalls, needs to be out the front, and they just didn't bother with the horse. But I'd say they didn't bother is in that they're not trying. The race was lost at the start of the stalls. Now, this was a horse that was very progressive last year, won at Goodwood off of 99, I think, so a £2 lower mark than now. The Al Kareem run at Nottingham in a listed race, it was only like a small field, but looked like a pretty good run. And I think it was a stepping stone to win a big handicap after. I'd happily just put a line through what happened last time out. And I thought in a much smaller field here, there was 14 runners that day, there's 10, might even go down to smaller if a horse like Knightswood doesn't come in here. I thought there was loads of reasons to think that 8-1 looked too big a price. And I mean, I probably could make a small bit of a case to say that this horse could end up being favourite in here. So that's my early thoughts on the race, even though I need to do a bit more work on it. Is it as simple as that, Will? Is Align the Stars way too big a price simply because he was favourite last time out?
I think he is a big price, yeah, definitely. And it's a classic case of just scratching off that run, really, because as you said, there was an excuse for it. And if you come into this race off the back of the third in the Further Flight Stakes behind Al Kareem and Divine Comedy, who might well boost the form today on Friday, then, yeah, you're absolutely looking at a horse who should be a good bit shorter as well. I think the main angle in for me here is to take on the favourite, Liam Swagger, though. He's probably priced up on connections, isn't he? I know Harry Davies is having a great time of things at the minute. But Liam Swagger, he's a versatile type, as is most of the stables runners, really. And he ran with credit, I thought, at Chelmsford on Good Friday. But, he's probably rated about where he should be, really. He's that type of durable mid-80s type horse. He's not going to go and improve to be 100+ type horse. So I think that, he's too short. He's gettable as favourite, definitely. So Align the Stars would be one option. And the other one would be the winner of that Queen's Cup, Chiava, because he's just a rock solid type of horse, isn't he? Never runs a bad race whatsoever. He had a break over the midwinter period before he came back and needed the run in the Scottish Champion Hurdle, but he improved quite nicely for that a week later to win that Queen's Cup. And you'd imagine he's just going to keep running his race again now throughout the course of the season. He loves fast ground. He's been second in an Ebor. He's got good form here at Newmarket. He was second in the big 3-year-old mile and 6 handicap back in 2023, where the form has worked out really well of that particular race. So he's good at Newmarket, stays the trip well, likes fast ground, versatile tactically. In a race where I want to get the favourite beat, and there's not too many of those at bigger prices that I, are too excited by. I think it's just one of those where you've just got to side with Cahava to absolutely run his race. And if he does, he'll definitely be in the 3 without a shadow of a doubt. And he could easily go and win it.
I like it. So we want to take on Liam Swagger in agreement there. Right, Will, we'll move on to the big one for Sunday, the 1,000 Guineas. Now, where I touched on the 2,000 Guineas, well, this is going to get cropped up millions of times. I've said it so many times, possibly not be an absolute vintage renewal. And I'm going to get pelters for that probably because there's obviously lots of nice types in there. This, to me, considering it's a race where favourites don't seem to have the best record in the 1,000 Guineas, and I don't know, year after year, it tends to be sort of bigger price winners in there, or horses that it's not even necessarily the favourites that got a bad record. Second favourites and maybe even third favourites don't seem to do so well. I think this looks like an absolute banger because Desert Flower looks something very special. And Lake Victoria, as much as she wasn't started, or as much as the early parts of last year, she wasn't probably the best of the Aidan O'Brien fillies, I guess would be the best way to say it, because Bedtime Story was one that looked like she was going to be the superstar. I can't believe what she did in the Breeders' Cup when she was stepped up to a mile for the first time. The Americans, when they jumped out the stalls, sort of jostled a position, and she was in a bad pocket on the inside. But the confidence that Ryan Moore had in her to not panic, and I know in those situations, if you panic, you are really screwed. But he knew just how good she was stepping up to the trip. There was never a question about whether she was going to stay or any of that stuff. So I think that performance could be marked up. But even if you didn't mark it up, what she did there, I mean, surely should be enough to say that she should be closer in the market to Desert Flower. But then maybe, Will, does that just really make you realise just how good people think Desert Flower is? Because at the time of recording, she's an odds-on favourite, 10 to 11. It's 3-1 Lake Victoria. Red Letter's 5-1. Then it's 12-1 or bigger. So is it as simple as it's just a match between the front two, do you think?
I don't think it is, no. I mean, it could play out that way, and you could certainly understand it. But I think there are other horses with the scope to go and improve. Desert Flower, this will be her first start of the season, of course. Charlie Appleby will have her absolutely ready to roll for this particular race. That is usually the MO of that stable and operation, isn't it? So, yeah, look, she's the right favourite, but I see your angle with Lake Victoria potentially being a bit too big in comparison to her. But if you think that's perhaps the case, then I also think maybe you could suggest that Red Letter is a little bit too big by association as well, because I thought she was really unlucky, actually, behind Lake Victoria in the Moyglaire Stud Stakes, the Group 1 over 7 furlongs last back end. She just didn't, got trapped in a pocket in a 5-runner field and couldn't quite find her stride until too late. And the race developed away from her, and she ran on down the rail at the Curragh into 4th. And I think she, obviously Lake Victoria has gone on and won twice since then. So you're thinking she's probably improved. But, Joe Lyons wouldn't be one to waste a bullet, in a Group 1 over in England, a Guineas or anything like that. He'll only run them if he really feels they're ready to do themselves justice, I think. So I thought she might be worthy of some kind of an interest. But the market's probably, in terms of the order, it's probably right. You can make a case for maybe Lake Victoria and Red Letter being a little bit skinnier than what they are, but for me, it's not the case where I'd be diving in to back them. And then of those at bigger prices, that there weren't too many really that I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Possibly the one would be Shanti Lace for Rafe Beckett and Ross Orion, but a bit of a soft ground pedigree, to be fair, and the one win back end of last year came on real heavy ground. So probably more of a watching race for me, the 1,000 Guineas this year. Nothing's really standing out.
Yeah, I feel the same as well with that, Will. And I think it's one of those that possibly Lake Victoria could tighten up a little bit. You could see Red Letter shortening up as well a little bit, because I think a few people would be looking for the sort of each way play against the favourite. But then there's a price point with Desert Flower that if we were previewing this now and Lake Victoria was down to 2-1 and Red Letter was 7-2 and Desert Flower was out to 6-4, 7-4, we'd be saying she's probably the bet to have at that time. So it's one of those, I think, like you've said, that the market order is probably correct. There might be opportunities to say that these prices are slightly different, but I ultimately am not sure if it'll actually affect the result, because I do think that Desert Flower does look like a worthy favourite, and I'm sort of hopeful that she is going to be an absolute weapon. She did that gallop recently as well, didn't she? And I know there's only so much you can read into that, but there was a lot of people falling over what she did there, and she shortened up quite a lot off the back of that. So there would be better stopwatch people than me on a performance like that obviously must have said that it was a well above average effort. And like I said, I touched on Lake Victoria. As much as she's gone and achieved lots of stuff, they didn't really expect it so much from the start of the season. And there are those bits of form where you've had horses run behind. I mean, even Simmering, when she was behind on good ground, I think if that race had been run on slower ground, which Simmering would have preferred, there's a chance you could say them two could reverse the form. Obviously, she's not going to get that in here, so she wouldn't even be one at 50s that I'd be looking at twice. But it starts to put a few chinks in Lake Victoria's form, whereas I don't think at the moment it's really possible to do that with Desert Flower. So worthy favourite, will be a no betting race for me, but I feel like it's going to be a phenomenal race. I'm hoping it's just a good clash between the two of them. One of them draws clear, and then we can get excited for the rest of the season. Was there anything else, Will, at Newmarket or anywhere else for Sunday you'd like to cover?
It was similar to the Saturday, actually. There's a once raced or a seasonal debutant that caught the eye on that seasonal debutant. It's a 2-year-old this occasion, George Bowie's 2-year-old Moonfall. In the 4:45 at Newmarket. Good second to a Godolphin newcomer at the Craven Meeting Military Code. Probably a bit of a deeper race on Sunday, over 5 furlongs on this occasion. You've got another Godolphin newcomer. You've got a Richard Hannon newcomer. You've got an Ammo newcomer. And George Scott's newcomer is quite nicely bred as well. So potentially one or two interesting types to take on. But I'm hoping that might just give you a bit of a better price about Moonfall, because he really caught the eye with his... the way he travelled through the race, and then just probably greenness and track position got him beat. I think he's definitely of some interest for Sunday in that 4:45.
Love that, Will. And this, again, it's the time of the season, isn't it, where if you've got a horse that is a bit of an eye catcher, even if they went into this race and they didn't go and win, it doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong. These are all the types of horses that there's big events through the season, isn't there, that we get to see how they are. And if you've got something as a bit of a yardstick early on, for example, we're thinking Moonfall could be quite special. Probably would take quite a good newcomer to beat him first time up, wouldn't it? So that's an interesting race to watch. Anyway, all the action feels like that a bit this weekend, isn't it? That it's all well worth watching, because it's worth its weight in gold for form lines going forward. So you have to find out by checking the link in the description what our final selections are for both Saturday and Sunday. It's good to start getting started on the flat wheel. I'm predominantly a jumps man. It's not that I get fed up of it by this time of year, but it's nice when the sun's shining, the ground's fast, and we've got some of these speed balls going out to appreciate the different type of horse that it is that goes and wins these ones. And because it is a bit more fast and furious on the flat, not just in the racing, but in the turnarounds of these horses, it's quite exciting to watch the racing, knowing that you're not going to have to wait 6 months to see them make their next run like you get to have with like your Tiapus and stuff. You can get excited, and that excitement can continue. And I can't wait to see the Lion and Winter out. I can't believe he's going to absolutely slap up in a derby. He's one that's semi-interesting with the Acon form with Ruled in Court, because it wouldn't be something I put in the column, but I definitely will be having a small win bet on Ruled in Court for the 1,000 guineas and stick him in a double with the Lion and Winter to try and get some cash from him, just in case that comes up, because it happens a lot in this 1,000 guineas, doesn't it? Sometimes the winner of the derby comes in this race, but there's always an impact on the derby market. And as much as the Lion and Winter's already short, he might be even shorter come Sunday. Right. I've waffled enough, Will. Thank you so much for your time. It's good to be back getting some of this flat racing in. We've got a bit of a schedule for this season, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Drop a like on the video if you like the video. Drop a comment below with whatever your best bet is for this weekend, and we will see you again very soon.